You know what's fascinating? Right now, at this very moment, you are enough, you are complete, you are whole. And yet, how many of us spend our entire lives searching for something outside of ourselves to make us feel complete? We look for it in relationships, in jobs, in possessions, in achievements, in other people's approval. We keep thinking that if we just get that one thing, if we just reach that goal, if we just find that person, then finally we'll feel like we've arrived. Then finally we'll know our purpose. Then finally we'll feel worthy. But here's the truth that can set you free right now. What you're looking for isn't out there. It never was. Everything you need, everything you're meant to be, everything you're meant to do is already inside you. It's been there all along. You were born with it. You came into this world with a unique set of gifts, talents, abilities, and a purpose that only you can fulfill. Nobody else can do what you're here to do. Nobody else has your exact combination of experiences, insights, and capabilities. Think about an acorn for a moment. Inside that tiny seed is everything it needs to become a mighty oak tree. The oak tree isn't somewhere out there that the acorn has to go find. It's not hiding in the forest waiting to be located. The oak tree is already within the acorn. All the acorn needs to do is what comes naturally. It doesn't struggle. It doesn't doubt itself. It doesn't look at other acorns and think, maybe I should become a pine tree instead. It simply allows what's already inside to emerge and grow. It trusts the process. It trusts its own nature. You are exactly like that acorn. Everything you're meant to become is already encoded within you. Your purpose isn't something you need to find. It's something you need to allow. It's something you need to trust. It's something you need to stop resisting and start expressing. But somewhere along the way, most of us forgot this fundamental truth. We started believing that we're not enough as we are. We started thinking that our worth depends on external validation. We started looking outside ourselves for answers that can only be found within. When you were born, you didn't doubt yourself. You didn't question your worth. You didn't wonder if you were good enough. You simply were. You expressed yourself freely. When you were hungry, you cried. When you were happy, you laughed. When you wanted to move, you moved. You were completely authentic, completely yourself, without apology or hesitation. You trusted your instincts completely. You knew what you needed and you asked for it. You knew what brought you joy and you pursued it. You were connected to your inner guidance system and you followed it without question. But then something happened. You started getting messages from the world around you. Messages that said you should be different. Messages that said you should fit in. Messages that said you should follow the rules, color inside the lines, be practical, be realistic, stop dreaming so much. You learned that love and approval were conditional. You learned that you had to perform in certain ways to be accepted. You learned that your natural impulses couldn't always be trusted. And slowly, gradually, you disconnected from that inner knowing. You stopped listening to that voice inside you that knows exactly who you are and what you're meant to do. Now, years later, you find yourself searching for something that you already have. You find yourself trying to become someone that you already are. You find yourself looking for a purpose that's been waiting patiently inside you all along, just hoping you'll notice it. And the beautiful thing is, it's not too late. It doesn't matter how long you've been disconnected from your true self. It doesn't matter how many wrong turns you think you've taken. It doesn't matter how much time you feel you've wasted. Your purpose is still there. Your gifts are still there. Your authentic self is still there, waiting for you to come home. The search outside yourself will never satisfy you because what you're truly seeking cannot be found in external circumstances. You can accumulate all the success in the world, and if you're not connected to your inner truth, you'll still feel empty. You can have all the recognition, all the money, all the possessions, and still feel like something's missing. Because what's missing isn't a thing. What's missing is the connection to yourself. What's missing is the recognition that you already are what you've been trying to become. When you understand that your purpose is within you, everything changes. You stop chasing, you stop struggling, you stop trying to force things to happen. Instead, you start allowing, you start listening, you start trusting. You begin to notice the gentle nudges from within. You pay attention to what brings you alive. You follow your curiosity. You honor your interests. You express your unique perspective. You share your gifts without needing permission or validation from anyone else. Your purpose isn't some grand cosmic assignment that you need to decode. It's much simpler than that. Your purpose is to be yourself. Your purpose is to express what wants to be expressed through you. Your purpose is to share your unique light with the world. It might show up as art. as teaching, as healing, as building, as nurturing, as creating, as serving. It might look different in different seasons of your life, but the common thread is always the same. It feels aligned. It feels true. It feels like you're being yourself, not trying to be someone else. You see, the world doesn't need another person trying to be someone they're not. The world has enough people playing it safe, following the crowd, doing what they think they should do instead of what they feel called to do. The world needs you to be you. The world needs your unique expression. There's a space in this universe that only you can fill. There's a contribution that only you can make. There's a song that only you can sing. And when you hold back that expression, when you deny your authentic self, when you keep searching outside yourself for what's already within, you're not just depriving yourself of fulfillment, you're depriving the world of your gifts. Think about the people who have inspired you most in your life. Were they inspiring because they were trying to be like someone else? Were they inspiring because they followed the safe path? Were they inspiring because they sought everyone's approval? No. They were inspiring because they were authentically themselves. They were inspiring because they trusted their inner guidance. They were inspiring because they expressed what was true for them, even when it was scary, even when it was different, even when others didn't understand. That's what the world is hungry for. That's what touches people. That's what creates real change. Not people who have it all figured out, not people who are perfect, not people who never struggle or doubt, but people who are willing to be real, people who are willing to be vulnerable, people who are willing to show up as their authentic selves, imperfections and all. And here's what's so freeing about this. When you stop trying to be something you're not, life gets so much easier. The struggle isn't in being yourself. The struggle is in trying to be someone else. The struggle is in trying to meet everyone else's expectations. The struggle is in looking outside yourself for validation. When you come home to yourself, when you reconnect with your inner truth, there's a natural ease that emerges. Things start to flow, doors start to open, opportunities start to appear. Not because you're forcing them, but because you're finally aligned with who you really are. This doesn't mean that challenges disappear. It doesn't mean that everything becomes effortless. But it means that even when things are difficult, you're facing those difficulties as your authentic self. You're not adding the extra burden of pretending to be someone you're not. You're not carrying the weight of trying to live up to external expectations. You're simply being yourself and dealing with life from that place of truth. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. You might be thinking, but I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what I'm meant to do. I don't feel connected to any inner guidance, and that's okay. That's actually a perfect place to start, because the very fact that you're aware of that disconnection means you're ready to reconnect. The very fact that you're searching means something inside you is waking up. The way back to yourself isn't complicated. It doesn't require years of therapy or meditation or soul searching, although those things can certainly help. The way back to yourself simply requires that you start paying attention. Start noticing what lights you up. Start noticing what feels true for you. Start noticing when you feel most alive, most authentic, most yourself. Start noticing what you do that makes time disappear. Start noticing what you care about, what moves you, what makes you feel passionate. And equally important, start noticing what drains you. Start noticing what feels false. Start noticing when you're pretending, when you're performing, when you're trying to be someone you're not. Start noticing what you do out of obligation versus what you do out of genuine desire. These observations are like breadcrumbs leading you back home to yourself. You also need to start questioning the beliefs you've been carrying. So many of the things we believe about ourselves aren't even our own beliefs. They're beliefs we absorb from our parents, our teachers, our culture, our past experiences. We heard them so many times that we started accepting them as truth. But they're not truth. They're just thoughts. And thoughts can be changed. Maybe you've been believing that you're not creative. But is that really true? Or did someone once tell you that and you just accepted it? Maybe you've been believing that you're not good enough. But is that really true? Or is that just a story you've been telling yourself based on some past experiences? Maybe you've been believing that you need to have everything figured out before you can start. But is that really true? Or is that just fear disguising itself as practicality? When you start questioning these beliefs, when you start seeing them for what they are, just thoughts and not truths, you create space for something new. You create space for your authentic self to emerge. You create space for your inner guidance to be heard. You create space for your purpose to reveal itself. And here's something crucial to understand. Your purpose doesn't have to be something big and grand and world-changing. It doesn't have to be your job or your career. It doesn't have to be something that makes you famous or wealthy or recognized. Your purpose is simply about being true to yourself and expressing that truth in whatever ways feel right to you. It might be as simple as bringing kindness to everyone you meet. It might be about creating beauty in small ways. It might be about raising your children with love and consciousness. It might be about being fully present in whatever work you do, no matter what that work is. The mistake so many people make is thinking that purpose has to be something spectacular. They think they have to start a movement or change the world or do something that's never been done before. And while some people are called to those kinds of expressions, most of us are called to something much more ordinary and yet equally important. We're called to simply be ourselves, to share our unique gifts in our own unique ways, to touch the lives that we're meant to touch. You don't need to compare your purpose to anyone else's. You don't need to make your purpose bigger or smaller or different than it is. You just need to honor it. You just need to express it. You just need to trust it. Because when you're living from your authentic self, when you're expressing what's true for you, you're fulfilling your purpose. It's that simple. And something magical happens when you start living this way. You stop feeling like you're searching for something. You stop feeling like something's missing. You stop feeling like you need to prove yourself or become someone different. You feel complete exactly as you are. You feel peaceful. You feel purposeful. Not because you've achieved some external goal, but because you're finally being yourself. This is the greatest freedom there is. This is what all the searching has really been about. Not finding something outside yourself, but remembering what's inside yourself. Not becoming someone new, but returning to who you've always been underneath all the conditioning and beliefs and fears. Not discovering some hidden purpose, but allowing your natural purpose to express itself. You came into this world with everything you need. You came in whole and complete and perfect just as you are. And yes, you're meant to grow and evolve and learn and change. But that growth doesn't happen by trying to become someone you're not. That growth happens by becoming more fully yourself. It happens by peeling away the layers of false beliefs and conditioning and fear that have covered up your true nature. It happens by remembering what you knew when you were born, that you are enough, that you are worthy, that you are here for a reason. Think about how much energy you've been spending on the search. Think about how exhausting it's been trying to find yourself outside yourself. Think about how much stress you've experienced trying to meet everyone else's expectations. Think about how much anxiety you felt wondering if you're on the right path. Now think about what would happen if you took all that energy and redirected it inward. What would happen if instead of searching, you simply listened? What would happen if instead of trying to become something, you simply allowed yourself to be? The answers you seek are not in another book, another seminar, another person, another achievement. The answers are in the quiet moments when you stop all the seeking and simply be with yourself. The answers are in that still small voice inside that's been trying to get your attention all along. The answers are in the feelings that arise when you do something that truly matters to you. The answers are in the peace you feel when you stop pretending and start being real. And yes, listening to that inner voice requires courage. Being yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you into someone else requires courage. Following your own path when everyone else thinks you should follow theirs requires courage. But here's what I want you to understand. You already have that courage. It's inside you right now. It's part of what you were born with. You've used it before, even if you don't remember. You used it when you were a child and you expressed yourself freely. You've used it every time you've been true to yourself, even in small ways. The courage isn't something you need to find or develop or create. It's something you need to trust. It's something you need to access. It's something that emerges naturally when you connect with your authentic self. Because your authentic self isn't afraid. Your authentic self knows its worth. Your authentic self trusts the process of life. It's only the false self, the conditioned self, the self that's been taught to doubt and fear and play small, that feels afraid. When you connect with who you really are, fear doesn't disappear, but it no longer controls you. You feel the fear and you move forward anyway. You feel the doubt and you trust yourself anyway. You feel the uncertainty and you take the next step anyway, because you're connected to something larger than your fear. You're connected to your truth. You're connected to your purpose. You're connected to the part of you that knows you're exactly where you need to be, doing exactly what you need to do, becoming exactly who you're meant to become. And let me tell you something else that's important. This isn't a destination. This isn't something you achieve once and then you're done. This is a practice. This is a daily choice. This is a constant returning to yourself. Because life will still throw challenges at you. People will still have opinions about how you should live. Circumstances will still arise that test you. And in those moments, you'll have a choice. You can abandon yourself and go back to seeking outside yourself, or you can come home to yourself and trust what's within. Every time you choose to trust yourself, you strengthen that connection. Every time you choose to express your truth, you honor your purpose. Every time you choose to be authentic, you become more fully yourself. It's not about being perfect. It's not about never doubting or never struggling. It's about choosing yourself over and over again. It's about remembering over and over again that what you seek is not out there, but in here. You know, one of the most powerful shifts you can make is moving from asking, what should I do, to asking, who am I? Because when you know who you are, what you should do becomes obvious. When you're connected to your authentic self, your choices become clear. When you're aligned with your inner truth, your path reveals itself. You don't need someone else to tell you what to do. You don't need another self-help book or another guru or another system. You need to listen to yourself. You need to trust yourself. You need to be yourself. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you stop searching for your purpose and start being yourself, your purpose finds you. When you stop trying to figure out what you're meant to do and start doing what feels true, your path unfolds. When you stop looking outside yourself for validation and start validating yourself from within, everything you've been seeking starts showing up. Not because you finally found it out there, but because you finally allowed it to emerge from within. This is available to you right now, not someday when you have more clarity, not someday when you feel more ready, not someday when circumstances are better. Right now, in this moment, you can choose to stop the endless searching and start being. You can choose to stop trying to become someone else and start expressing who you are. You can choose to stop looking for your purpose out there and start living your purpose from within. What would that look like for you? What would it feel like to trust yourself completely? What would it feel like to express yourself fully? What would it feel like to know, without a doubt, that you are enough exactly as you are? What would it feel like to live from that place of inner knowing rather than external validation? What would change in your life if you finally came home to yourself? These aren't rhetorical questions. These are invitations. Invitations to feel into your truth. Invitations to connect with your authentic self. Invitations to remember what you've always known but perhaps forgotten, that you are whole, you are complete, you are enough, and everything you need is already within you. The oak tree doesn't search for its oakness, the river doesn't search for its flow, the sun doesn't search for its light. They simply are what they are. They simply express what they're meant to express. They simply fulfill their purpose by being themselves. And you can do the same. You can stop searching and start being. You can stop trying and start allowing. You can stop forcing and start flowing. This doesn't mean you become passive. This doesn't mean you stop growing or learning or evolving. This means you stop struggling against yourself. This means you stop trying to be someone you're not. This means you align yourself with your true nature and allow that nature to guide you. There's tremendous power in this. There's tremendous peace in this. There's tremendous purpose in this. When you live this way, you stop needing life to be different than it is. You stop needing yourself to be different than you are. You stop needing other people to validate you or complete you or give you permission to be yourself. You become free. Not free from challenges or responsibilities or difficulties, but free to face all of life as your authentic self. Free to express your truth. Free to live your purpose. Free to be who you really are. And what you'll find when you live this way is that life supports you. Not in some magical, everything becomes perfect kind of way, but in a real, tangible, you start noticing synchronicities and opportunities kind of way. When you're aligned with your authentic self, you naturally attract people and circumstances that resonate with that authenticity. When you're expressing your truth, you naturally find outlets for that expression. When you're being yourself, life has a way of working with you rather than against you. This is not about wishful thinking or positive affirmations or pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is about something much more fundamental. This is about aligning with the truth of who you are. This is about recognizing that you are not separate from the creative intelligence that runs through all of life. You are an expression of that intelligence. You are a unique manifestation of the same force that grows trees and moves planets and beats your heart without you having to think about it. That force is within you right now. That intelligence is accessible to you in every moment. That creative power is yours to use, not by manipulating or controlling or forcing, but by allowing and trusting and expressing. Your job is not to figure it all out. Your job is not to have all the answers. Your job is simply to be yourself. And let that universal intelligence work through you in its own unique way. This is why searching outside yourself will never work. Because what you're looking for is not an object or a person or a circumstance. What you're looking for is a connection to yourself, a connection to your truth, a connection to the part of you that knows why you're here and what you're meant to express. And that connection can only be made by turning inward, by getting quiet, by listening, by trusting, by being. So I invite you now to stop. Stop the endless searching. Stop the constant trying. Stop the exhausting effort to become someone you think you should be. Stop looking outside yourself for what can only be found within. Just stop. And in that stopping, in that stillness, in that silence, listen. Listen to the voice that's been trying to get your attention all along. Listen to the yearnings of your heart. Listen to the wisdom of your body. Listen to the knowing of your soul. What is it telling you? What does it want to express? What does it need you to know? What is it calling you to do or be or create or share? Don't dismiss it. Don't judge it. Don't tell yourself it's not practical or possible or good enough. Just listen. Just receive. Just allow. Because in that listening, in that receiving, in that allowing, you'll find what you've been searching for all along. You'll find yourself. You'll find your purpose. You'll find your peace. Not because you finally located it somewhere outside yourself, but because you finally remembered it was inside yourself all along. You are not broken. You do not need fixing. You do not need to become someone else. You need to remember who you are. You need to reconnect with your truth. You need to express what's been waiting to be expressed. You need to trust what's been waiting to be trusted. You need to be what you've always been underneath all the conditioning and fear and doubt. This is your time. This is your moment. This is your life. And it's waiting for you to show up fully, authentically, courageously as yourself. Not the self you think you should be, not the self others expect you to be, but the self you truly are, the self that knows, the self that trusts, the self that's whole and complete and enough exactly as it is. Stop searching. Start being. Stop trying. Start allowing. Stop forcing. Start flowing. Stop doubting. Start trusting. Stop pretending. Start expressing. The answer is within you. The purpose is within you. The peace is within you. Everything you've been looking for is within you. It always has been. It always will be. You just need to come home to yourself and let it emerge. That's all that's required. That's all that's ever been required. Not a grand search, not a difficult journey, just a simple return. A return to yourself, a return to your truth, a return to the knowing that you are enough, that you are whole, that you are exactly who and what you need to be. Right here, right now, in this moment, always. You know, there's something absolutely miraculous that happens when you stop holding on so tightly to everything in your life. Most of us spend our entire existence grabbing, clutching, trying to control every single outcome, every person, every circumstance. We wake up in the morning already planning how we're going to make things happen, how we're going to force life to bend to our will. And then we wonder why we're exhausted. We wonder why we're stressed. We wonder why, despite all our effort, things still don't turn out the way we expected. Here's what I've learned after all these years of studying human behavior, of working with thousands of people, of examining my own struggles and breakthroughs. The universe operates on a principle that's completely opposite to what most of us have been taught. We've been conditioned to believe that more effort equals more results, that if we just push harder, grip tighter, control better, we'll finally get what we want. But that's not how life works. That's not how the energy of this universe flows. Think about water for a moment. When you try to grab water with a clenched fist, what happens? It slips right through your fingers. But when you cup your hands gently, when you allow the water to rest in your open palms, you can hold it. You can drink from it. You can be nourished by it. Life is exactly the same way. The tighter you grip, the more it eludes you. The more you let go, the more it flows toward you. Now, I'm not talking about giving up. I'm not suggesting you become passive or indifferent. There's a massive difference between letting go and giving up. Giving up is surrender born from defeat. Letting go is surrender born from wisdom. Letting go means you're still engaged with life, you're still participating, you're still creating, but you're doing it from a place of trust rather than fear. You're doing it from a place of allowing rather than forcing. Most of our attachment comes from fear. We're afraid that if we don't control the outcome, something terrible will happen. We're afraid that if we don't micromanage every detail, everything will fall apart. We're afraid that if we're not constantly vigilant, constantly pushing, constantly striving, we'll lose what we have or never get what we want. But this fear-based approach to life is exactly what creates our suffering. It's exactly what blocks the very things we're trying to attract. When you operate from fear, you're operating from a state of lack. You're telling the universe, I don't have enough. I'm not enough. Life isn't giving me what I need, so I have to take it by force. And the universe, being the mirror that it is, reflects that energy right back to you. You get more experiences of lack, more experiences of struggle, more experiences of having to fight for everything. But when you let go, when you release that death grip on how things should be, you open yourself up to how things could be. And I promise you, the universe is far more creative, far more generous, far more abundant than your limited human mind could ever conceive. Your ego, your conscious mind, can only see a few steps ahead. It can only plan based on what it already knows, what it's already experienced. But the infinite intelligence that runs this universe, the same intelligence that grows a baby from 2 cells, the same intelligence that keeps planets in orbit and makes your heart beat without your conscious effort, that intelligence has a much bigger plan for you than you could ever design for yourself. I've seen this play out countless times in my own life. Every single time I've tried to force something to happen, I've either failed or succeeded in creating something that wasn't really aligned with my highest good. But every time I've let go, every time I've said, okay, I'm going to do my part, I'm going to take inspired action, but I'm going to release my attachment to the specific outcome, magic has happened. Opportunities I never could have predicted showed up. People I never knew existed came into my life. Solutions to problems that seemed impossible suddenly became clear. Let me be more specific about what letting go actually means in practical terms. It doesn't mean you stop having goals or desires. It doesn't mean you sit around waiting for life to happen to you. What it means is you hold your goals lightly. You move toward them with enthusiasm and commitment, but you don't strangle them with your need for them to manifest in one specific way at one specific time. When you're attached to an outcome, you're saying, I know exactly how this needs to happen, when it needs to happen, and who needs to be involved. You've written the entire script in your head, and now you're upset when reality doesn't follow your screenplay. But when you let go of attachment, you're saying, I know what I want to create or experience, and I'm going to move in that direction, but I'm open to it showing up in ways I haven't even thought of. I'm open to it being even better than I imagined. I'm open to the timing being different than I planned if that serves my highest good. This is especially important when it comes to relationships. Oh, how we suffer in our relationships because of our attachments. We meet someone, and immediately our ego starts creating a story about who they should be, how they should behave, what they should give us. And then we spend the entire relationship trying to mold them into our preconceived idea instead of allowing them to be who they actually are. We try to change them, control them, fix them. And we're miserable because they keep being themselves instead of our fantasy version of them. Or we hold on to relationships that have clearly run their course because we're attached to how things used to be, or attached to our investment of time and energy, or attached to not being alone. We stay in situations that drain us, that diminish us, that prevent us from growing, all because we can't let go. We're so afraid of the empty space that would be left behind that we'd rather fill it with something that makes us unhappy than face the temporary discomfort of release. But here's what I want you to understand. When you let go of a person or situation that isn't serving you, you're not losing anything real. You're only losing your attachment to an idea, a fantasy, a hope that things could be different than they are. And when you release that attachment, you make space for something authentic to enter your life. You make space for relationships that uplift you, for situations that align with your growth, for experiences that actually fulfill you. The same principle applies to your relationship with material things. Money, possessions, status, these are all wonderful things to have, and there's nothing wrong with wanting them. But when you're attached to them, when your sense of worth and security is tied to them, you become their slave. You make decisions based on fear of losing them rather than on what truly serves your soul's purpose. You sacrifice your peace, your health, your integrity to get them or keep them. I've watched people destroy themselves chasing money because they were attached to the idea that money would make them happy, would make them worthy, would make them safe. They got the money, and they were still unhappy, still felt unworthy, still felt unsafe. Why? Because they hadn't addressed the inner void they were trying to fill. They were looking outside themselves for something that could only be found within. When you let go of your attachment to money as a source of security and instead trust that you live in an abundant universe that will always provide what you need, something shifts. You still work, you still create value, you still receive compensation, but you do it from a place of joy and service rather than desperation and fear. And ironically, when you operate from that energy, you often end up with more money than you would have by chasing it frantically. This is the paradox of letting go. By releasing your desperate need for something, you actually become more magnetic to it. Why? Because neediness repels. Confidence attracts. When you need something, you're in a state of lack, and that energy pushes away the very thing you want. But when you want something without needing it, when you desire it but know you'll be fine either way, you're in a state of abundance, and that energy draws things to you effortlessly. Think about how this shows up in everyday situations. When you desperately need someone to like you, they can feel that neediness and it pushes them away. But when you're comfortable being yourself, when you're okay whether they like you or not, suddenly you become more attractive. When you desperately need a job, you go into the interview tense and trying too hard, and they can sense it. But when you know your worth, when you trust that if this job isn't right, there will be another one, you show up confident and authentic, and you're more likely to get hired. The energy of desperation, of attachment, of neediness, literally changes how you show up in the world. It affects your body language, your tone of voice, the decisions you make, the opportunities you notice or miss. When you're attached, you're contracted, you're tight, you're closed off. But when you let go, you expand, you relax, you open up. And in that openness, life can reach you. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds great in theory, but how do I actually let go? I've been trying to stop worrying, stop controlling, stop being attached, and I can't seem to do it. And that's because you can't force yourself to let go. You can't make letting go another thing on your to-do list, another goal to achieve through effort and willpower. Letting go happens naturally when you shift your perspective, when you change your underlying beliefs about how life works. The first step is becoming aware of what you're attached to. Most of us don't even realize how many things we're gripping tightly. We think we're just living our lives, but we're actually in a constant state of low-grade anxiety about maintaining control. So start noticing, when do you feel tense? What thoughts create anxiety in your body? What situations trigger your need to control? Just observe without judgment. Awareness is always the first step toward change. Once you're aware of your attachments, the next step is questioning the beliefs behind them. If you're attached to someone's approval, ask yourself why. What do you believe will happen if they don't approve of you? If you're attached to a specific outcome, ask yourself why this particular outcome seems so important. What are you making it mean about you or your life? Usually, when you drill down, you'll find that you're attaching your identity, your worth, or your safety to external circumstances. And that's the root of all suffering. Your worth is not determined by your accomplishments, your relationships, your bank account, or any other external measure. Your worth is inherent. It was established the moment you came into existence. You are an individualized expression of the infinite creative force of the universe. You are literally made of the same energy that creates galaxies. How could you not be worthy? How could you not be enough? Your value isn't something you have to earn or prove. It simply is. When you really understand this, when you feel this truth in your bones, letting go becomes natural. You stop needing external validation because you validate yourself. You stop needing to control outcomes because you trust that you're always being guided toward your highest good. You stop needing people, circumstances, or things to be different than they are because you know that your peace, your happiness, your fulfillment come from within. This doesn't mean you become indifferent or apathetic. You still care about things. You still have preferences. You still take action toward your goals. But there's a lightness to it. There's a trust. There's a knowing that whether things work out the way you planned or not, you're going to be okay. More than okay. You're going to grow, learn, and evolve through whatever happens. I want to talk about control for a moment because this is where so many of us get stuck. We've been taught that we're supposed to control our lives, that responsible adults manage and control everything. But the truth is, we control very little. We don't control other people. We can't make someone love us, respect us, or behave the way we want them to. We don't control circumstances. We can't prevent loss, change, or unexpected challenges from showing up in our lives. We don't even fully control our own minds and bodies. Thoughts arise whether we want them to or not. Physical sensations, emotions, and impulses happen automatically. So what do we actually control? We control our response to what happens. We control where we place our attention. We control the meaning we assign to events. We control the actions we choose to take. That's it. And that's enough. When you stop trying to control all the things you can't control and focus on the things you can, you become powerful. Not in a dominating way, but in an authentic, grounded way. Letting go of control doesn't mean nothing is in your hands. It means you're taking your hands off everything that was never yours to hold in the first place. You're releasing your grip on other people's choices, on past events you can't change, on future outcomes you can't guarantee. And in doing so, you free up enormous amounts of energy that you can now direct toward what you actually can influence. Think about how much energy you waste trying to control things that are beyond your control. You replay conversations in your head, wishing you'd said something different. You worry about what might happen in the future, rehearsing disasters that will probably never occur. You try to manage other people's opinions of you, constantly adjusting your behavior to win approval. All of this is exhausting, and none of it is effective. When you let go of the illusion of control, you get your energy back. You get your life back. You're no longer scattered across 1,000 different concerns, most of which are imaginary. You're present. You're here. You're available for the actual experience of your life instead of being lost in your thoughts about your life. This presence is incredibly powerful. When you're truly present, you notice things you would have missed. You feel your intuition more clearly. You respond to situations with wisdom rather than reacting from old patterns. You connect with people authentically instead of performing for them. You experience joy, beauty, and love more fully because you're actually there for them. And here's something beautiful that happens when you let go. You stop being motivated by fear and start being motivated by love. Fear says, I have to make this happen, or something bad will occur. Love says, I want to create this because it would be beautiful, meaningful, or joyful. Fear contracts and strains. Love expands and flows. Fear is exhausting. Love is energizing. When you're creating from love rather than fear, everything changes. Your work becomes more creative, more inspired, more effective. Your relationships become more genuine, more intimate, more satisfying. Your life becomes an expression of who you really are rather than a defense against who you're afraid of being. I've spent decades studying spiritual texts from every tradition, and they all point to this same truth. Whether it's the Tao Te Ching talking about Wu Wei, effortless action, or the Bhagavad Gita discussing non-attachment to the fruits of action, or Jesus teaching about not worrying about tomorrow, or the Buddha explaining the cause of suffering, they're all saying the same thing. Attachment is the problem. Letting go is the solution. But these aren't just ancient teachings. Modern psychology has caught up with this wisdom. Research shows that people who are less attached to specific outcomes experience less stress, better mental health, more creativity, and often more success in achieving their goals. Why? Because they're not blocking the flow with their anxiety and rigidity. They're open to possibilities. They adapt more easily. They see opportunities that others miss because they're not fixated on one narrow path. Neuroscience has shown us that when we're anxious and controlling, our brain literally narrows its focus. We go into a stress response where we can only see threats and problems, but when we're relaxed and trusting, our brain opens up. We can see more options, make better decisions, and tap into our higher cognitive functions. Letting go isn't just spiritually wise, it's biologically smart. Now, let's talk about what happens when you actually practice this. When you start letting go, things might feel scary at first. Your ego is going to protest. It's going to tell you that if you don't stay in control, everything will fall apart. It's going to create fearful scenarios about all the terrible things that will happen if you release your grip. This is normal. Your ego's job is to keep you safe, and it thinks staying in control is how to do that. But you're not your ego. You're the awareness behind your thoughts. You're the infinite part of yourself that knows you're always safe because you're always connected to the source of all life. So when those fearful thoughts arise, you don't have to believe them. You can acknowledge them, thank your ego for trying to protect you, and then gently redirect your attention to trust. Trust is the antidote to control. When you trust that the universe is fundamentally benevolent, that it's always moving in the direction of greater life, growth, and love, you can relax. You can let go. You don't have to figure everything out. You don't have to make everything happen. You can do your part and trust that the universe will do its part. This trust develops over time as you test it out. You let go of something small and notice that not only did nothing terrible happen, but often something better showed up. You release control in a relationship and find that the relationship either improves or naturally ends, making space for a better one. You stop forcing a particular career path and find that a new opportunity emerges that's more aligned with who you really are. Each time you let go and see that you're supported, your trust grows. Eventually, you get to a place where letting go feels more natural than holding on, where trust feels more comfortable than control, where you actually prefer the experience of flowing with life rather than fighting against it. And this is when life really starts to give back to you, not because you've earned it or deserve it more than before, but because you've finally opened yourself up to receive it. You've removed the blocks. You've stopped pushing away abundance with your desperate grasping. You've become a clear channel for life to flow through you and to you. Things start showing up that you didn't even ask for. Synchronicities increase. You meet the right person at the right time. You hear about an opportunity just when you need it. You receive help from unexpected sources. Solutions appear for problems you were struggling with. It's not magic, although it can certainly feel magical. It's simply the natural result of aligning yourself with the flow of life rather than resisting it. The more you let go, the more you receive. But here's the beautiful twist. The more you receive, the less attached you become to receiving. You realize that the real treasure wasn't the things you received, but the person you became in the process of learning to let go. The peace, the freedom, the trust, the openness, the love. These inner riches are worth more than anything external you could ever acquire. When you reach this understanding, you become truly free. Free from the tyranny of your own desires. Free from the prison of other people's opinions. Free from the burden of trying to control an uncontrollable universe. And in that freedom, you can finally enjoy your life. Not someday when everything is perfect, but right now, with all its imperfections and uncertainties, you can appreciate what you have without clinging to it. You can work toward goals without your happiness, depending on achieving them. You can love people without needing them to complete you. You can face challenges without being destroyed by them. You can experience loss without losing yourself. You can embrace change without fear. This is what it means to truly live. Not to grip and control and force and manipulate, but to participate fully, respond authentically, create joyfully, and release peacefully. To show up with your whole heart while holding the outcome lightly. To care deeply while remaining unattached to results. Let me share something personal with you. For years, I held on to anger about my childhood. I resented my father for abandoning our family. I carried that resentment like a heavy stone, thinking somehow that my anger was punishing him. But the only person it was hurting was me. That anger was coloring every relationship I had, every decision I made, every moment of my life. When I finally let it go, when I truly forgave and released that resentment, everything changed. Not because my past changed, the facts remained the same, but my relationship to those facts transformed completely. I was no longer a victim of my history. I was no longer defined by what someone else had done decades ago. I was free, and in that freedom I could finally become who I was meant to be. That's what letting go does. It liberates you from the past and the future so you can inhabit the present. It releases you from who you thought you had to be so you can be who you actually are. It frees you from the prison of your own mind so you can experience the vastness of life itself. And here's what I want you to really hear. You don't have to let go of everything all at once. This isn't an all or nothing proposition. You can start small, choose one thing you've been gripping tightly, and consciously release it. Maybe it's a grudge you've been holding. Maybe it's a hope that someone will change. Maybe it's anxiety about a situation you can't control. Just one thing. Release it with intention. You might say to yourself, I choose to let this go. I release my grip on this outcome, this person, this need. I trust that whatever happens, I will be okay. I trust that the universe has my back. I trust that I am always being guided toward my highest good. And then notice what happens. Notice how your body feels. Notice the space that opens up. Notice what shows up in that space. Then, when you're ready, choose another thing to release, and another. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Because you've experienced the freedom and peace that comes from letting go, and you want more of that. Because you've seen that the universe really does support you when you release your death grip on life. This is a practice. It's not a destination you arrive at once and for all. You'll find yourself gripping tightly again, and that's okay. The moment you notice you're holding on too tight, you have the opportunity to let go again. Each time you do, it gets easier. Each time you do, you deepen your trust. Each time you do, you open yourself more fully to the abundant, generous, creative flow of life. And I want to be clear about something. Letting go doesn't mean you won't experience pain or loss or disappointment. Life includes all of those things. But when you're not attached, when you're not desperately clinging to how things should be, you can move through those difficult experiences with more grace. You can. Feel your feelings fully without being destroyed by them. You can grieve without becoming bitter. You can acknowledge disappointment without giving up on life. In fact, letting go allows you to feel your emotions more authentically because you're not wasting energy trying to control or suppress them. You can be with what is, whatever it is, knowing that you're spacious enough to hold it all, knowing that emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent residents, knowing that this too shall pass. This capacity to be with life as it is, rather than as you wish it were, is the ultimate maturity. It's the difference between being tossed around by circumstances and remaining centered regardless of what's happening around you. It's the difference between suffering and pain. Pain is inevitable in life. Suffering is optional. Suffering is what happens when we resist pain, when we attach to the idea that things shouldn't be as they are. When you let go of resistance, you can experience pain without creating suffering. You can feel loss without losing yourself. You can face uncertainty without being paralyzed by fear. Because underneath all the temporary circumstances of your life, there's a permanent foundation of peace. There's the unchanging awareness that you are, that has been and always will be, regardless of what comes and goes in your experience. This awareness is your true self. It's not your ego, your personality, your roles, your achievements, or your failures. It's the consciousness itself. And when you identify with this awareness rather than with the changing contents of your life, letting go becomes natural, because you realize that you can't lose what you truly are. The things you're so afraid of losing, your youth, your health, your relationships, your status, they were never who you are anyway. They're experiences you're having, but they're not you. You are the experiencer. You are the eternal, infinite awareness in which all experiences arise and pass away. When you really get this, when you feel this truth beyond just understanding it intellectually, you become fearless. Not in the sense that you never feel fear, but in the sense that you're no longer controlled by fear. Fear becomes just another sensation moving through your awareness, rather than a dictator determining your choices. From this place of identification with your true self, you can participate fully in life without being destroyed when things don't go your way. You can love completely without the fear of loss preventing you from opening your heart. You can commit fully to your goals while remaining unattached to specific outcomes. You can engage passionately with life while maintaining your inner peace. This is the paradox and the promise of letting go. You become more alive, not less. More engaged, not less. More creative, not less. More loving, not less. But you're doing it all from a place of freedom rather than need. from overflow rather than deficit, from trust rather than fear. And the universe responds to that energy. Life rewards that openness. Not because you've manipulated some cosmic vending machine, but because you've aligned yourself with how life actually works. You've stopped working against the current and started flowing with it. And when you flow with life rather than fighting it, you discover that life has been trying to give to you all along. You were just too tense, too closed, too attached to receive it. So my invitation to you is simple, though not always easy. Start letting go. Start with whatever feels manageable. Release your grip just a little bit on something you've been holding tightly. Notice what happens. Learn to trust through experience, not just belief. Test it out. See for yourself that the more you let go, the more life gives you. And remember, you're not doing this alone. You're supported by the same infinite intelligence that orchestrates the entire universe. The same force that knows how to grow a tree from a seed, how to heal a wound, how to turn food into energy. This same force is available to guide your life if you'll get out of the way and let it. Stop trying to do everything yourself. Stop thinking that your small, limited ego has to figure it all out. Surrender to the higher intelligence that's already within you, already guiding you, already conspiring for your benefit. Your job isn't to control everything. Your job is to be present, to be open, to be willing, to take inspired action when called, and to let go of the rest. When you live this way, life becomes an adventure rather than a burden, an unfolding mystery rather than a problem to solve, a gift to receive rather than a battle to win. And you finally get to experience the peace, joy, and freedom that you've been seeking all along, not by grasping for them, but by releasing everything that's been blocking them. The more you let go, the more life gives you. Not just more stuff, although that may come too, but more of what really matters. More peace, more love, more joy, more connection, more creativity, more aliveness, more of your true self. And isn't that what you really want anyway? Isn't that what all the grasping and controlling and forcing has really been about? The desire to feel okay, to feel safe, to feel whole. Well, here's the secret. You already are okay. You already are safe. You already are whole. Not because of anything you've achieved or acquired, but because of what you inherently are. You are an expression of infinite love taking form. You are the universe experiencing itself. You are consciousness exploring its own creation. And nothing you do or don't do, nothing you gain or lose, nothing that happens or doesn't happen can change that fundamental truth. When you rest in this truth, letting go isn't a sacrifice. It's a relief. It's the natural response to realizing that you never had to hold on so tightly in the first place, that you were always held, that you are always held, that there's a larger intelligence, a deeper wisdom, a greater love supporting you in every moment. Trust that. Let go into that. And watch your life transform in ways you never could have forced or controlled into being. The more you let go, the more life gives you. Not someday, not in theory, but right now, in this very moment, as you release your grip and open your hands to receive all that's already here, already available, already waiting for you to simply accept it. This is the path of peace. This is the way of wisdom. This is the art of living. Let go and let life love you the way it's been trying to all along.
Your purpose isn't to try to be loving. Your purpose is to be love and only have that to give away. Well, but there's one other ingredient, and it's really crucial. Forgiveness is the vital ingredient on the path of enlightenment. And if you don't know how to do it, then practice sending out love. Take the person or the people that you're having conflict with, any place in your life, send them something. You don't have to even do it physically. Just send them something that comes from inside. And what's inside is how you choose to think. And if you can make that love and do that, and that is to me the test. Not whether you can love someone when they smell good, when they do everything that you're supposed to, but whether you can love someone who has sent you hate or anguish in your life and send it back. You don't have to forget. You don't have to go back. But you got to get it out of you because it is blocking you and holding you back.
Living the Tao Te Ching, this 2,600-year-old, some people call it the greatest, the wisest book ever written. it speaks so much about relationships. Tao, the word Tao means the great way. It's really just another synonym for God, or source, or spirit, or that which is the all-creating. And one of the things that it says that was really helpful to me, probably the most helpful thing in it, was that whenever you have a conflict of any kind, in any relationship, whenever you have a conflict, that the person who is willing to be of Tao, of God, of Source, is the one who will practice forgiveness, or will go to the person that they have a conflict with and bring love to it, instead of the freeze out, instead of the anger, instead of the hatred, instead of the revenge, instead of so many of the things that we do when we have conflicts in our lives. We just don't talk to that person. Like, I'm not talking to that. I'm not talking to him. He's going to call me because I called the last time. But the person who lives the Tao life, the life of a higher consciousness, is the person who says, I end all conflicts on love, which is where we all come from. We come from a source that is love. So for me, that has been just so useful. I have 8 children, and that's been just extraordinarily helpful for me to be in a relationship where I can always be of love, where I can just, and so then you don't even, conflicts become something that are no longer present, because conflict requires two-ness. In order to have a conflict, you have to have two different opinions or whatever. But if you live in oneness, if you really see yourself in everyone else, see yourself in all the things, including the plants, including the animals, and including all beings and so on. If you just suspend this ego part of you and just see yourself in that other person, then your arguments are really with yourself, and your hatreds are really about yourself. And you begin to really see that I don't have to project anything onto anyone else that isn't what I choose to be.
And the idea of allowing is that you start to see that, you start to look at the world not the way you want it to be. This is the shift in our subconscious mind training that we have to go through. We have to get out of this mindset that the world ought to be the way I want it to be, and things ought to be going the way I think that they should be going, and that there should be nothing bad happens, and all of this kinds of stuff that we fill our inner world with, and talk about how terrible this is and that is and so on, when in fact the world is just the way it is. And when you can align yourself with that awareness that yes, you can do things to improve it and so on, but not by judging it, and not by saying that it shouldn't be this way. I've given the example many times of my friend Ram Dass, who, when we were talking about starvation, and it was when I was working for the Hunger Project to try to end hunger by the beginning of this century. This was back in the 1980s. And Ram Dass said to me many years ago that starvation, in different parts of the world, is part of the perfection of the universe. You've got to understand that, as hard as that is to grasp. And I paused and thought about that, and my original reaction is, how can you say such a thing? How can we accept the idea that some people have got to starve to death in a world where there's plenty of food and the technology to be able to grow it and so on is all here? How can you say that? But then he concluded his remark to me. He said, so starvation is a part of the perfection of the world, but so is your desire to end it. That's part of the perfection of the world. And so it's like and so where you put your attention is not on what you don't want, because if what you think about is what expands, and if you put your attention on the things that you don't like and that you don't want, then you just multiply the amount of negativity and the amount of what you don't want. You become a part of the very thing that you are trying to eradicate.
Where there is doubt, faith. How can I bring faith to the presence of doubt? Rabindranath Tagore, the great Indian poet, once said that faith is the sound that the songbird makes before the dawn. Before the dawn.
The songbird has got incredible faith. He knows the dawn is coming. And the ability of each and every one of us to just go within and find something inside of us. Someone said to me today that that's fine what you're talking about, but he said, I'm an atheist. And I said to him, I said, try not to think of it in terms of whether or not you belong to a perfect system, or whether God exists or doesn't exist the way you have been raised to believe. Try thinking of it as a presence. When you go to sleep tonight, look at your fingernails. And know that in the morning, they're going to be just a little bit longer than they were when you went to sleep. That there's a force in the universe that is everywhere. And this force doesn't grow your fingernails and stop yours from growing. This force doesn't allow your hair to grow. Well, that's not a good example. This force doesn't beat your heart and not mine. There's one force, one power in all of the universe, and it grows our fingernails, and it beats our heart, and it aligns the planets, and it opens every flower every morning, and it is this universal one song, universe, one song, that connects everything in the universe. It is a way of looking at the world from a spiritual perspective. Where there is despair, said Francesco, let me send hope. Michelangelo once responded, he said, the greater danger is not that our hopes are too high and we fail to reach them. It's that they are too low and we do. I do talk radio across the country all the time. And people will call in with a disease that has been diagnosed as terminal. And I will always tell that person that whatever energy that allowed any miracle to ever take place, that law is still on the books. It hasn't been repealed. Go to that place. Go to that place within you, that quiet place where you have an awareness that you can commune and reconnect to your source. And go there and be at peace. Find that inner joy, that inner island, that inner Tahiti that Melville described, that allows you to know that I am not going to have despair. I'm going to have hope. Where there is darkness, light. And I've spoken already about this whole metaphor of darkness and light. One of the most beautiful quotes from Ralph Waldo Emerson, Ralph, who sat right there, he said, there is no object so foul that intense light will not make it beautiful. And so often our thoughts are of darkness. So often at night, sometimes people they'll lie in their bed and they won't have any light in the room, and their minds will go into all of the fears and all of their worries and all of the stress. And I tell people, turn the light on. Bring light, literally bring light to that presence. Because in the daytime, when the sun is out, when you're out in the light, things just don't seem the same as they do in the darkness, do they? And it's that light, the bringing light to the presence of darkness. Light is a higher and a faster energy. Bring that energy to the presence of that lower and slower energy called darkness. And it is nullified. It can't survive, nor can hate, nor can anger. Perfect love, it says in the scriptures, perfect love casteth out all fear. Fear cannot exist in the presence of love. And sadness cannot exist in the presence of joy.
Just as you become what you think about all day long, so too do your relationships become what you think about. Your life and all of the relationships within it are all purposeful. Generally speaking, the quality of our lives is pretty much related to the quality of our relationship to the people in our lives. And, to add a piece to the equation, our relationships reflect how we relate to ourselves. That's right, to ourselves. When you cultivate the awareness of your body, mind, and soul as one, and experience unity within yourself, you are then ready to share this sense of wholeness and holiness with others. And this is where your relationships come in. When you have love for yourself, that is what you have to give away. What is inside you gets there by way of your thoughts. If you harbor hate, hate is what you give away. If you harbor self-contempt, contempt is what you give away. If you harbor love and compassion is what you give away. Your relationships travel the same course you do. If you learn through suffering and questioning why things were not working out, as I discussed earlier, then your relationships also suffered. If you followed the path of outcomes and began to see that there were lessons to learn in life, then your relationships also reflected this pattern. And if you've gone to purpose and have your life on purpose, your relationships will also reflect this position in your life. Remember, purpose is about giving. Let's take a look at the core ingredient of a relationship that is on purpose, and then examine some specific methods for getting there. At the center of a purposeful relationship is love, but it is more than simply being able to say the words, "I love you," for the words are used by people who also berate and harm each other on a daily basis. Love is giving, and it has nothing to do with what you receive. This ingredient of love at the level of giving is how purpose is defined, and it is the ultimate in creating miraculous relationships. If you have love inside of you, that is all that you will have available to give away. You begin to see the fullness of God in everyone you encounter, and the level of your relationships to others takes on the glow of real magic. You see your children and all children not in terms of what they are doing or how they're behaving or misbehaving, but beyond to the invisible part of them, the soul that is in that young body. You meet that soul with love and radiate it outward to them, and they will in turn respond with love. You have loving relationships with others because you bring love, rather than because you seek it from others. Members of your family with whom you have had a difficult time relating are no longer the source of your disdain. Your anger and negativity is gone, replaced by non-judgmental love. This does not require long years of therapy or the assistance of support groups or drugs or special herbs. It requires only that you shift to being a spiritual being first and a physical being second. Your friendships and business relationships can also improve dramatically with this new giving approach. When a conflict arises, you suspend your negative thoughts and instead send out love. When you respond in an unthreatened manner and instead communicate an inner knowing in a peaceful, loving way, you are incapable of being rattled by challenges. You have created a miracle in that relationship. I can remember as a college professor having some gigantic disagreements with my colleagues. They were what we call difficult people to get along with unless you shared their point of view, which very few people did. I discovered I was always able to get my way with these impossible colleagues. I was experiencing real magic where others were experiencing exasperation. The secret? Send them love and ask nothing of them. The colleagues always came around and found it impossible to be nasty or confrontational with me. I simply sent them the love I had inside and then surrendered. This approach to relationships is basically my approach to life. Stay on purpose. Know that you're here to serve. Get off of having to prove yourself. Remove your ego from the encounter and send out love. Giving love with no expectations is the cornerstone of your relationship when you are on purpose. There really is very little else that you need to know. Practice this giving of love without conditions, and you'll find yourself feeling full rather than empty, and blissful rather than miserable. Here are 4 ancillary qualities that go into this real magic in your relationships. 1. Relinquish your need to be right. This is the single greatest cause of difficulties and deterioration in relationships, the need to make the other person wrong or to make yourself right. The spiritual partnership is a relationship of equals. No one needs to be proven wrong. Each person has the right to their own point of view. A simple reminder goes like this: I know how I feel about this, and it doesn't match how she feels. But so what? It is enough that I know it in my mind. I have no need to make her feel wrong. Then stifle yourself, and you have created a miracle right there. You have replaced a potential conflict with a loving response. Practice this, and you will see love replacing anger between you. This is also true in your relationships to all others. Your children need to be guided, not to be made wrong. The embarrassment that goes with being proven stupid leads to a self-image of stupidity. You can replace those statements designed to prove how superior you are with loving responses designed to help your children and others examine their own point of view. This can be applied in business, with strangers that you meet, in disputes with your neighbors, in virtually all human relationships. 2. Allow space. Let there be space in your togetherness. When you love someone for what they are, rather than what you think they should be, or for how they please you, then allowing for privacy and space comes automatically. The clinging relationships racked with jealousy and fear come from individuals who believe they have a right to dictate what the other person ought to be. Rather than regarding the need of your partner to have alone time as a threat, see it as a time for renewal that you celebrate. Make every effort to help each other have that space. The irony is, the more space you allow and encourage within the relationship, the more the relationship will flourish. 3. Eliminate the idea of ownership. Seek to enjoy each other, not to possess each other. No one wants to feel owned. No one wants to feel like a possession. No one wants to be dominated or controlled. We all show up here with a purpose, and that purpose gets thwarted when any human being attempts to interfere with our heroic mission. Ownership is the greatest inhibitor to feeling a sense of purpose and mission in one's life. You don't have the right to tell the people with whom you are in a relationship what they ought to be doing while they're here on earth. That is only between each person and their soul. You may succeed in imprisoning another, and you may have a marriage that lasts for 60 years, but you do not have a loving relationship if either partner feels owned or like a possession. This is the lesson I had to learn the hard way. It cost me dearly. A painful divorce and many unpleasant hours in hostile conflict. Today, I can't even conceive of the idea that I could own my wife. She is her own person, and my own relationship to her is based upon acknowledging that in her. It is indeed reciprocal. It came about through giving, not demanding, through respect, not criticism. Number 4, you do not have to understand. What a great lesson this is in learning how to make all relationships work at a magical level. You simply do not have to understand why someone else would want to do and think the way they do. The fact that you are willing to say, I do not understand, and that is fine, is the greatest understanding you could exhibit. You are together not to understand each other, but to aid each other in living a life at purpose. These are the qualities that make for a purposeful relationship. They all orbit around the planet of unconditional love. Get to this place, and you will begin to see results in all of your relationships.
More conscious of your divinity, just conscious of your divinity, that you have the power to negotiate the presence of this energy to do incredible things for yourself. But there are 3 things you have to do. The first is you have to have what I call recognition of this force. And recognition of this force is nothing more than simply saying to yourself, I am open to the idea that there is a force that is greater than I am, to which I am always connected, that is everywhere at once, and no place that it is not. And I would like to just say that it is available to me. You don't have to have proof of it. You don't have to have anybody confirm it. It is just simply an awareness that it exists. See, once you recognize that this force that opens the flowers, that keeps the planet in alignment, that grows your fingernails every night and beats your heart, independent of your opinion about it. You go to sleep at night, you look at your fingernails the next morning, they're longer than they were the night before, and you're sound asleep. Not only that, but whatever force it was that grew yours, grew the person next to you and grew the people across the oceans as well. There's a force that's growing everybody's fingernails, whether they like it or not, and growing their hair, well, most of them, and beating their hearts and circulating their food and opening the flowers and turning, acorns into oak trees and turning embryos into human beings. There's a force. There's something. I can't see it. I don't know what it is. I recognize it. If you recognize it and that there's no place that it's not, the beauty of that is that it's also then in everything that you would like to attract into your life. And here you've just taken one step towards diminishing the role of the ego in your life. If you can recognize that there is a power in the universe that is that is part of you, if there's no place that it is not, then it has to be in you. And if it is in you, and there's no place that it's not, it also has to be in whatever you'd like to attract into your life. So all you have to say is, I'm already connected to that which I would like to attract into my life. That what you want wants you. All you have to do is somehow figure out a way to realign your inner intention and recognize, I am not separate from it, I am connected to it, it just hasn't shown up in my space yet. But I'm already connected to it.
That's a very powerful insight. That's why people at higher levels of consciousness can manifest, because there's no delay between what they put in their attention on and having it show up. It's why the gift of fish and loaves is the ability to see hungry people and to think food, and it shows up. And even the least among you can do all that I have done. It's all within you to be able to do that. So that shifting takes place first and foremost with the recognition that there is a force, there is a power. That's how you treasure your divinity. The second thing that you do is what I call realization. And realization is the time in your life when you stop telling yourself that I believe this or don't believe this on the basis of what somebody else says or does. It comes from my own personal direct experience. It's the only thing I will rely upon. I will not rely upon the written word. I will not rely upon the spoken word. I will not rely upon someone else out there telling me that this is what God is or how it works. I will rely upon the realization of it through my own direct conscious experience. And I will not try to persuade anybody else. I will not listen to or argue with anybody about whether it's real or not real, whether it works or doesn't work. I know it. Be still and know. And you have that knowing, and the realization is there, and you trust in that realization. I trust in my own experience. I've had it. I have talked to this force. I have seen it work. I've put my attention on it. I've been able to manifest what I want in my life. I've been able to heal myself. I've been able to help heal others. I've been able to feel comfort in times when others feel sadness. These are all things that I know come to me through my direct experience of God. And it doesn't matter what anybody else out there says or does. Realization. I now realize it and trust in that. That's the second step. And the third I call reverence. And reverence is where you begin to have a daily commune with this power, with this force. That you are not only aware of it, but you are communing quietly with it. You're communing quietly with it. The way to get to this place of inner peace and consequently to experience higher awareness is to shut down the internal frenzy. The Chinese sage Seng Chan Tsen gave us the following piece of wisdom. Stop talking, stop thinking, and there is nothing you will not understand. Return to the root and you will find meaning. Look inward, and in a flash you will conquer the apparent and the void. He is counseling us to simply stop talking and stop thinking. This is the third key to the sense of peacefulness that is a part of the way of the sacred quest. I want to make it clear that peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the experience of the presence of God. As you learn to shut down your inner dialogue and become more peaceful, you will begin to know the presence of God in your life. That presence will be felt in both your body and your inner world. Beliefs are removed. Belief is replaced with knowing. At different times in my past, both alcohol and other substances were a part of my own life path. Through meditation, I was able to leave alcohol behind, and I have never touched it since. But with other substances, I believed I could use them when I chose to for an energizing effect beyond anything I had ever experienced. I was able to use them, enjoy increased energy, and leave them alone for long periods of time. But a time came when I knew I was making foolish and non-spiritual choices connected with seeking out these insidious substances. My personal challenge became to rid myself of these insidious habits. I tried reading my way out of it, but I went back. I tried acupuncture, discussions with experts, and herbal cures, but I went back. I was determined that I would no longer play around with any substance, but I went back. Then I had what I call a holy instant, which was for me a divine experience. At 4:05 a.m. on a January morning, I was meditating. In the still quiet of that meditation, the thought of never again using a substance became real. It was my first absolutely direct experience of God. My entire inner screen of awareness became a bright luminescence as I heard a voice say, You've tried everything else. Why not try me? I have never in my life known such peace and certainty that God was with me and around me. I felt overwhelmed by the bliss I experienced. I listened to that voice, felt the presence of God, and have not since experienced the slightest desire to go back to any substance. I have debated with myself about putting this very personal story on this tape. That is, my ego self debated with my higher self. But I knew my experience with chemical substances involved helping others to look within instead of outside of themselves for both the excitement and the peace their higher self has for them. If, in my telling this story, one person who experiments with any substance and knows that it is out of control decides to shut down the inner turmoil and seek the help of their loving presence, then it will have been worth it. You needn't have the challenge of getting off drugs to find value applying this third key to higher awareness. It works the same way for every experience you are ready to transcend. Getting to silence and then having God be your personal knowing presence. Getting to silence requires conscious effort on your part. When going within, use the metaphor of the pebble dropping through the various levels of your mind. While the pebble drops, be the witness. Observe compassionately all your chatter and thoughts as you descend to the unified field. When you notice your mind overly crowded with thoughts, practice not focusing on anything just for a few moments. Tell yourself, my mind is full of the disturbance of chatter and thoughts. I'm going to try to spend 5 minutes without any thoughts bombarding me. I'll dismiss every thought just for a few moments. Use your breath as a means to keep your mind from chattering away ceaselessly. You can do this by focusing your compassionate witness on your breathing. Breathe in deeply, excluding any thoughts as you concentrate on the in-breath. Then exhale slowly and fully with the same concentration. When thoughts appear, as they will, know that they are signaling you to return to mindfulness of your breathing in and out. Your heartbeat can also be used as a focal point for the witness. Return to the steady, rhythmic beat of your heart when you notice thoughts intruding. When you find your thoughts just below the surface in the analyzing level, think of a rose. As you replace the analyzing with the beauty of a rose, you might want to recall this verse by the poet Rabindranath Tagore. Do not carry a rose to our beloved, because in it is already embodied a message which, unlike our language of words, cannot be analyzed. That is, remember that the habit of analyzing or picking things apart in a judging fashion keeps you from knowing the truth that is at the center of your being. The rose needs no analyzing, as the poet reminds us. It simply is. The same is true of you. At the synthesizing level, when you are feeling the beauty and unity of life, you may discover that you are entering thoughts of pleasure about enjoying this spiritual space. Let go of those thoughts too. The ego enjoys convincing you that you are better than others because you are more spiritual or have deeper understanding. It swims through your consciousness with thoughts like those. When it does, gently send it elsewhere for this time of meditation or prayer. To understand that you have a higher self and to know it and be aware of it is one thing, but to trust in it is quite something else. And the ways to put this principle into practice are, first of all, to keep in mind that you cannot go to a higher ground if you're hanging on to a lower level. That in order to get yourself to a higher place, a place of trust, you have to somehow recognize that all of the stuff that's going on in your life in a lower place is something you have to let go of. You have to trust that when you do let go, you're not going to be falling into the abyss. And I would recommend that you take a real rebellious attitude toward the philosophy which preaches that that you are not connected to the divine energy, that somehow this force that has many names is something that is outside of you, and you're not deserving of it. Until you know that you can trust in it, you can't use it and acknowledge it in your life. One of the things to do to practice this trust is to take the most serious problem that you have and turn it over to God. Affirm to yourself, I would like to show my trust in the divine force by simply turning my problems over to your divine hands. I can remember doing this with some of the things that I really struggled with at one time in my life, things that I just thought I couldn't get past. I remember going through relationship difficulties. I remember going through problems with drinking and things like this, where it just seemed like I wanted to get past it and I just didn't know quite what to do. I can remember times when I would be stuck in my writing and not sure whether I could, and I would just stop and I would just say, all right, I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to trust. I'm going to trust. I'm going to surrender. And this concept of surrender is very, very important. So when you do this, it's just that simple act of getting down on your knees and staying there on your knees and just say, okay, I'm going to turn this over to something that is higher within myself. And the ego seems to go away, and the solution seems to be there for you. The presence of complete trust is evident in your life when you start to think and feel and do are all balanced and they're all in harmony. This is called congruence. If you're congruent, your thoughts and your feelings and your behavior are all in harmony. If you're incongruent, you have one thought about, gee, I'd like to be able to do this, but then you feel another way about it, and then you act in a completely different way. And this is the cause of most of the struggles in our life, and it's also the thing that impedes the free flow of the divine force into your life. You have to trust in yourself. When you're trusting in yourself, you're trusting in this very wisdom that is the source of your life. And when you are congruent within and are feeling congruent, you are also beginning to act congruent. So work on congruency and look at the areas in your life in which you feel yourself to be incongruent. What do I think about this, and how do I feel, and how do I act? And try to bring them into harmony. And you'll start accessing this trust that is absolutely essential to the manifesting process. And of course, as always, you have to begin a meditation practice of contemplating the supreme principle which is beyond the pettiness of this world. And as you meditate and go within and you make conscious contact with God, God isn't something that you know about any longer. God is something that you know directly and personally. And once you have this direct conscious contact, this knowing, then trust is not anything that you'll ever have to work on again. You'll have the knowing, you'll have banished the doubt. In your silent moments of prayer, I would recommend that you're not afraid to ask for help, because what you're asking for is a more direct communication and dialogue with God, which is, of course, a part of what you are already in the first place. So that God is not this giant vending machine in the sky who's dispensing goodies to you, but God is a part of you that you are in dialogue with, and you ask for that, and you'll find yourself achieving it. I'd also recommend that you practice a 2 or 3 day regimen of just having unconditionally loving thoughts and nothing else towards one particular person in your life, whoever that might be, maybe one of your children or your in-laws or one of your spouse, or maybe someone you're struggling with or having a difficult time in communicating. And just practice, say, for this day and this day only, I am going to practice everything, no matter what they say or how they say it. I'm just going to respond internally with unconditional love. I'm not going to allow any negativity there. And watch how that relationship changes. Remind yourself that love transforms, that unconditional love is healing, that it heals the body and it heals the mind. And if you have this kind of approach to your life and don't put conditions on it, then you'll find yourself feeling much more peaceful, and you'll sleep better, and you'll enjoy your friends and neighbors more, and your prosperity will increase, because unconditional love is the same as having peace within yourself. Remember, the opposite of love is really fear. Every time you experience fear, ask yourself, what's going on that I've substituted fear here for love in this moment? And the fear that we have that we're not complete, or that we're alone, which is the number one fear that all human beings seem to suffer from, is that the fear of being alone. Once you've transcended that fear of being alone, you begin to recognize you're never alone. You always have divine guidance. You're always connected to this divine principle that is universal. That means it's everywhere, which means there's no place that it's not, which means, of course, that it's within you. So you substitute that fear when you accept unconditional love into your life. It goes away.
I want to read you just a few things from the Wahoo Ching, and this is all about meaning. Dissolving the mind is a matter of not doing. Simply avoid becoming attached to what you see and think. Now, this is one of the most important lines in the Wahoo Ching. Relinquish the notion that you are separated from the all-knowing mind of the universe. Relinquish the notion that you are separated from the all-knowing mind of the universe, which is what I spoke about with the ego. You've got to relinquish that idea. The all-knowing mind of the universe, God, is not only something that you are connected to, it is something that you are.
carry that inner vision around. The idea that you could somehow be separated from God is a complete and total illusion. Then you can recover your original pure insight and see through all illusions. Remember, because clarity and enlightenment are within your own nature, they are regained without moving an inch. This is really powerful. I always go back to remind myself of that. Because clarity and enlightenment are within your own nature, they are regained without moving an inch. Now here's the big kicker from the Hua Hu Ching. If you correct your mind, the rest of your life will fall into place. That is, all of your addictions, all of your overweightedness, all of your poisons, all of your pain, if you correct your mind, everything else will fall into place. The 23 pounds that I took off in 29 days, I attribute to not eating sugar, and I wanted to talk about that here when we talked about returning to your original nature. But I think it's because I corrected my mind. See, if you correct your mind, that's when you know when you're over an addiction. One of my favorite people that I've come to know is President Reagan's daughter, Patty Davis. You knew it wasn't the others, didn't you? Those of you know about it. I mean, she's the scurvy elephant. And she was a cocaine addict, severe. And she wrote an essay in Newsweek magazine about how she quit cocaine. And she said she tried everything. She tried not disappointing herself. She tried not disappointing her father, who was the president of the United States. She tried not disappointing her mother, but her mother was always disappointed in her, she said. And then she said, I finally got to a place in my life, and that was the conclusion of it. And I took this out and I sent it to my daughter, who has struggled with drugs, and she read it to everybody in the unit that she was staying in at the time. She said, I finally decided that I no longer wanted to disappoint God. Now remember, I'm not talking about God in a religious context here, in the sense of this is a specific religion that has been handed to you. She might just as well have said, I no longer wanted to disappoint the highest place that I am, my highest self. I didn't want to stay misaligned any longer. And by realigning herself with her God nature and realizing that you can never be separate from God, from your source, from your divinity, and relinquishing that idea of your separation from it, by doing that, you correct your mind. And as you correct your mind, that's like when we were talking about the sugar thing, if you correct your mind about that, this is going to be really easy. And as you do that, it's not like I'm tempted, but I'm not going to. It's like the temptation is gone because you're home. You're back home. You're in the place of well-being. Make me an instrument, if you want to pray, of thy well-being. And of thy well-being, that from which I originated. Okay. So, more important than that, if you correct your mind, the rest of your life will fall into place. This is true because the mind is the governing aspect of a human life. If the river flows clearly and cleanly through the proper channel, all will be well along its banks. The integral way, the way of meaning, depends on decreasing, not increasing. To correct your mind, rely on not doing. Stop thinking and clinging to complications. Keep your mind detached and whole. Eliminate mental muddiness and obscurity. Keep your mind crystal clear. Avoid daydreaming and allow your pure, original insight to emerge. Quiet your emotions and abide in serenity.
Listen to these words, recorded during a 1967 lecture given by an initiatic science master, Omram Mikhail Ivanov of Bulgaria. Quote, The Creator has planted within every creature a fragment of himself, a spark, a spirit of the same nature as himself. And thanks to this spirit, every creature can become a creator. And this means that instead of always waiting for their needs to be satisfied by some external source, human beings can work inwardly by means of their thought, their will, and their spirit to obtain the nourishing, healing elements they need. This is why the teaching I bring you is of the Spirit, of the Creator, and not of matter." Unquote. I love this quote because it speaks to a part of you that has been largely ignored throughout all of your educational pursuits and accomplishments. The key words here are a fragment of himself, a spark that lies within you, but has largely been left unexamined. This is a great image for you to begin to understand the greatness of your higher self. There is a spark of God within you that is the invisibleness I've been alluding to. It is that which you cannot grasp with the senses. It beats your heart, it grows your hair, and it keeps your lungs breathing in and out. You've become accustomed to taking it for granted while putting the major focus of your life on the physical, that is the unreal part of you. My objective in this chapter and the next is to inspire you to recognize that a spark, a tiny fragment of the creative source of the universe, is located within you, and to help you increase the power of that spark so it becomes the primary force in your everyday life. Review the first chapter and affirm your willingness to change your concept of yourself to help you recognize and increase that spark. Then dedicate yourself to exploring this higher self that I'm talking about. Your higher self is that spark, but a spark is an infinitesimal portion of your physical being. If you weigh, say, 150 pounds, that spark weighs maybe 1/100th of an ounce or 1/1,000,000th of an ounce. This is only a symbolic image because the spark is unchanging. But I'm encouraging you to conceptualize that spark of God inside of you. Imagine it growing to double its size, then a tenfold spark, then maybe a shred, then a segment, then a chunk, then a lump, then a piece, then a section. And just perceive that spark of God as the real you becoming visible through your loving and inviting attentiveness until you feel the sacred presence of your higher self as the guiding light of your life. Ultimately, as I'll talk about later, it will overtake the you that's been dominated by an ego and your sensory apparatus. That former speck of a spark will become the foundation of your life. You might conceptualize this former spark as a sacred light inside of your head that is the same size as your brain. Now you've had a big piece of God to assist you in attaining a status wherein the fulfillment of your wishes becomes a no-brainer, or perhaps you'd call it a new-brainer. This new brain is comprised exclusively of infinite God energy. In order to accomplish becoming an almighty being, your higher self, that is God, must be enlarged from a spark to a more meaningful portion of your essence. Since you are a piece of God, and therefore have that within you, you needn't doubt your own divinity. As Jesus reminds you in the New Testament, "Is it not written in your law, I have said, you are gods?" That's from the book of John 10:34. As a growing spark of God, you must be willing to say, that portion of myself that has not edged God out, that is ego, must be perfect. It is all-knowing and it is almighty. There is nothing that this higher self, that I am, cannot accomplish. Once again, let's look back at something Jesus told us. Quote, "With God, all things are possible." That's in the book of Matthew 19:26. All things are possible leaves nothing out. As my teachers in the initiatic sciences frequently reminded me, this higher self, that portion of God that is us, only begins to notice us and give us the attention we crave when we enlarge it from a tiny spark and invite that energy into our life. Your awareness that God isn't something external to you, but rather a portion of yourself, is truly a giant step in your spiritual evolution. You can tell yourself with genuine knowing, I am perfect. All forms of I am have tremendous significance. God no longer resides outside of you and no longer plays favorites. In short, You've revised humankind's image of a God created in its own egoistic idea of itself. A God who knows how to heal, yet withholds healing from some and offers it to others who are presumed to have paid some kind of dues. A God who is angry. A God who gives humans the pleasure of sexuality, but promises to burn in hell those who don't follow rules devised by other humans. A God who gives us eyes and remains invisible, but threatens damnation for those who don't believe in him. A God who demands to be paid for services with fancy temples and gold-lined costumes for his highest representative. This is a God of the ego. Your higher self is a piece of an all-loving, all-embracing, creative source. All you need do is accept that this is not something external to yourself. It resides within you. The kingdom of heaven is within. In fact, it is you. And all you need do is begin to align yourself with this divine essence. Begin to act like it acts and think like it thinks. And you will begin the process of manifesting just as it does. This is the true essence of living a life in which your wishes are fulfilled, giving your divine nature a chance.
And the affirmation for this principle of manifestation is, I deserve to experience divine abundance, for I am a part of God. And of course, the universe is abundant. It is endless. This intelligence that I've been speaking about is endless and abundant. And you, therefore, also are abundant and are deserving of that abundance. But there's a lot of stuff that has come your way that has worked to convince you that this isn't true. And what I want to do here in this principle is to help you to recognize not only your own divinity, but that whatever comes your way, you are entitled to. And that there's nothing selfish about having a desire. This idea that somehow there's an incompatibility with desiring abundance in your life, or desiring healing, or desiring anything in your life. You know, you can't create without a desire. You can't have anything without a desire. Even the desire to be desireless is a desire. And this idea that we don't have desires is really almost, it's a hallucination. It's a myth that somehow I shouldn't be wanting things. You are a part of the endlessness and the abundance of this divine universe. And you are not incompatible with prosperity and joy and wealth and fulfillment. This is something that you not only can ask for, but are entitled to. And you must know that. Someone mailed this to me that I thought I'd share this with you. It's called I Am Lost. It says, a woman is dying of AIDS. A priest is summoned. He attempts to comfort her, but to no avail. I am lost, she said. I have ruined my life and every life around me. Now I'm going painfully to hell. There's no hope for me. The priest saw a framed picture of a pretty girl on the dresser. Who is this, he asked. The woman brightened. She is my daughter, the one beautiful thing in my life. And would you help her if she was in trouble or made a mistake? Would you forgive her? Would you still love her? Of course I would, cried the woman. I would do anything for her. Why do you ask such a question? Because I want you to know, said the priest, that God has a picture of you on his dresser. And I think that picturing ourselves this way, with all of the problems that we have had, the things that we feel bad about, the mistakes that we may have made, the people that we may have hurt, all of these kinds of things have a tendency to make us feel unworthy. There's a lot of people who think, you know, I'm going to be able to manifest what I want in my life as soon as I am no longer an addict, or as soon as I am no longer fat, or as soon as I remove all of these problems I have in this relationship. When I get rid of all of this, when this all goes, then I will feel worthy. And it's almost like you have to shift that consciousness around and come at it from a different perspective, which says, I love myself while I am fat. I love myself
while I'm an addict. I love myself regardless of what it is that I may have seen as something that I shouldn't be. That God does have a picture of me on his dresser, is the metaphor as well. And what it does is it fills you with this kind of unconditional love that I'll be talking about a little bit later in one of the later principles. But you begin to say, yes, I am worthy. And I'll tell you when you feel most worthy of what it is that you would like to be able to manifest. You see, if you feel unworthy, what you do is you block the flow. And remember, there's an energy. There's a flowing of energy in everything. That's what manifesting is. And the idea that somehow I shouldn't have this or there's something wrong with it immediately puts you into a feeling or a space of being separate from this thing that you want to manifest. It's like you put up that blockage. Someone asked the question, does God have this for me? Does God want that for me? And almost always when we ask that question, we make an assumption. We're coming from that ego assumption that God and I are separate. And the same thing is true when you're feeling unworthy. What you're really saying is that God has made a mistake here. And there are no mistakes. And this divine intelligence is everywhere. And it's a theme that will run through this entire program. This idea that what I want to manifest has the same divine intelligence in it that is in me and that is in everything. So I'm realigning myself. But you can't realign yourself if you feel like what you would like to have come to you, that you aren't worthy of it. You have to know that you are as worthy of anything showing up in your life as anyone else is on the planet. The essence of this is that you have to be at peace. And being at peace is what enlightenment is. As my teacher told me, enlightenment is being immersed in and surrounded by peace. That's the definition of enlightenment. And it is also what the higher intelligence or the sacred part of you or the higher self always wants. It just wants you to be at peace. Nothing else. It's not asking any more. When you feel unworthy, you're not at peace. The ego has taken over this idea somehow that you have certain obligations, you have to behave in certain ways, you have to fulfill the obligations of your conditioning or of the tribe. That's what starts to take over, and you've got to let go of that.